questions that you all have, or does that make you think of other questions? Go ahead.
I know from my experience, some of the things that I learned in class I don't even use at my job. And so for you guys, I want to know what your employers kind of expect from you, and how much do you guys use from your class that you learned?
I think that's a good question. You're asking a great question. I feel that all of the lower lower division classes, like the chemistries and the biologies, the generals, they're important to build a base for yourself, so that you understand that you got to do this work because it's important. Because you're working your way up towards the higher division classes, which use some of the things that you're learning, like the mathematics or the biomechanics, the physics part in biomechanics, or just more of the microscopic fundamentals. You probably won't learn or you probably won't really need as a professional. Things that we do now are more hands-on, more vocational, towards the career path that I've chosen. So I don't know exactly what it is with the ladies here, but we're working more with patients, so it's not very, the academia isn't really necessary with what I've learned in like general chemistry, but the higher end chemistry, the higher level chemistry, I definitely need it in order to understand how like bacteria works in a certain diagnosis of a patient. So yes, I think you're going to need both. It all ties in, but I think the higher level classes definitely help gain a little bit more ground.
I think at this time in like your life, you don't initially think that that's going to help you, because I thought that way too. Like when I was taking my chemistry and my pre-calc classes, I was like, when am I going to use this? Because like I'm just wasting my time. But I think once you are in the working world, or you go to grad school, like you remember bits and pieces of your foundation classes. So it just really lays like a good groundwork, or like a foundation. Just for you, it just makes you more a well-rounded person. I mean, it is required for all the students here too, but I mean, they make you take it because, not just because you have to, but it's just, it'll benefit you. And I know you don't think about it now, because I definitely did not think it was going to help me either when I was undergrad. But now in grad school, it's like I'm learning a little bit about statistics, or learning a little bit about different like theories that I learned as undergrad in psychology, even though I didn't major in it. So like you pick up these little things, and either in the professional life or in graduate school.
So I guess my question to you is, what's your major? Do you know yet, or you?
It's human resource development.
Oh, okay. For me, my major was sociology, and I went into the business field, merchandising, which I knew nothing about. So I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So like Heather and Yang said, the foundation is a good base for you. I mean, they're there for a reason. But when you get to more specifically to your major, you do use the theories and the lessons that you studied upon. For me, sociology and going to a retail world was very different. I didn't learn the textile and the clothes and everything, but the sociology aspect of learning how to work in a group came in very important. So it's not so much, okay, how do you use this equation to get this? Don't think of it in that sense. It's more your thought process behind it. So, for example, the thought process of solving a math problem is what you're going to be using in the real world. It's your critical thinking. So at school, the physical material of it, you might not use it, but it's the process of how you think about the problem that is going to be applied in the real world. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, that was my experience. Even though I didn't have any hands-on or class about retail, when it came to sociology, using that understanding, okay, how do you work in groups, and how do different personality match, and how do you communicate with someone who has a different personality than you, and the group dynamic really came in handy for me. So.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I kind of feel like I use a lot of the stuff I learned every day
I mean, you know, and I work with Admission Possible, definitely not something, you know, it's not a marketing position, not a public relations position, but like, you know, like a lot of times, like when I try to like connect with my students, I'm like, you know, like how do I like market this event for my students, you know, like how do I reach out for them, like how do I make them like come to this event, like, you know, like, and you know, we'll have meetings and I'll throw out like some like terms and everybody's like, what are you talking about? So, you know, I mean, definitely like, I think because like as you're learning it and as you know it, like you just, it comes so natural to you that you don't think you're really like thinking about it, but you are, like, you know, and like in the back of your head, like, you know, you'll pull something from something you've learned in class, and it just, you know, it just comes so natural that, you know, like and definitely you're not going to use everything that you've learned. I mean, you know, some things, yeah, like a lot of like the theory stuff, like they're theories, and it's how you apply that to like the real world is, you know, that's what you take away from it. So like, you know, in a like a broader sense, you use it, it's not like in your face though.
And it really depends on the career that you go into. I mean, if you're going to be a doctor or chemistry, you know, you're going to be using those things that you're going to school every day. But if your major is more liberal art, like psychology, sociology, then to apply the theories and everything they use is going to be a little different if you're going to go into like a very technical field.
That question kind of relates to, you know, taking the information from school and transitioning it into the workforce. And kind of on that related theme of transitioning into the workforce, what would you say are some of the rewarding parts or things that you enjoy about kind of getting past graduation? What are the things that they'll have to look forward to? And on the flip side, what have been some of the challenges of transitioning into the workforce after being a student? Or in your case, grad school, or, you know, whatever you'd like to touch on.
Well, I think one of the hardest thing, you know, like my coworkers and I, we always talk about how, you know, in college, everything was so flexible, you know, like my work was flexible, my classes were flexible, but you know, like once you get into the work field, like, you know, you work set 40 hours, like either like, you know, 9 to 5 or like 8 to 4, you know, so like, and it's weird. At first it was just kind of like, man, like, you know, like, and you know, like my day is like the same every time, you know, and it kind of is like, man, you know, like what am I gonna do to make it like more worthwhile? And I think that was one of the hardest things, was just kind of like, you know, like I'm on a constant repetitive like day schedule, and so you know, I think that was the hardest. But I don't know, like I was telling Zer like earlier, like once I graduated, I'm like anti-school, like, you know, I'm so glad to be in the work field. And you know, and I like school, I love my majors, but it's kind of like, you know, like, but to be working, and like I kind of feel like I just feel so much more accomplished, like when I like work with students and I get stuff done. And so I mean, I don't know, like I really like my job, I really like what I do, and so, you know, and I think I was lucky and I found a really good atmosphere that like fit me and fit my personality. And so, you know, like as repetitive as my days could be, like I always kind of look forward to going to work though. So yeah.
For me, my transition was a little tougher, and I think the reason why is because looking back when I was younger, I was so naive, and I think that going from an academic setting to Target Corporation, which has a very strong corporate culture, was a culture shock for me. So the transition for me was very hard. Like the first 2 years, I'm like, what is going? Do I even belong here? There were things that I didn't, just social things that I didn't know of, that Target did, that I wasn't aware of. So for example, just something simple as a happy hour, I didn't even know what that was. And going to such a big corporate culture was hard for me. And I think when I made that transition from college to the real world, I really missed school. And out of my close group of friends, I was one of the first ones to graduate. So while all of them were still here at the U of M, hanging out and, you know, being in class, I was already out there working. And it was hard for me to find someone to just talk to about my experience at Target, and you know, talk to them about these emotions, some of the things that they felt through that process. I mean, when you graduate, you know, you're happy, you're like, yes, I'm done with school, you know, I'm going to work. But once you're out there in the real world, you're like, wow, it's very different from what you thought it was going to be. And she said, the 8 to 5 to 9 to 5, it's very repetitive, it's routine. And you find yourself thinking, oh my God, when I was in college, I was able to do so much more with my day. I went to school, I worked, I attended activities, but when you go and you stop doing all that to just working all the time, it's a very hard transition. And you find yourself trying to find other things to do. Okay, well, now that I'm done with work, what can I do? Okay, let me go volunteer. So you miss that. For me personally, I miss that aspect of college, the fact that you were able to do so many things in one day compared to working. Now it's like, no, you're stuck here, 9 to 5, at 5 o'clock, then you can go and do your activities that you want. But other than that, you're here. So, like you said, I think that you have to find your passion, and I think that's very important, because once you find your passion, you do a job that you really love, that 9 to 5 doesn't become so daunting. And aside from that, don't make work your whole life. Try to find other ways to enrich your life by volunteering or playing sports, or because that will give you a more healthy lifestyle in a sense. And I think that's something that I learned the hard way. My first 2 years, all I did was work. That's all I did. But then my 3rd and 4th and 5th year, I'm like, okay, it's not making me happy. I need to go back to the lifestyle I used to know in college, which was working, but also doing other activities, which I have. And now I find myself a little bit happier, more well-rounded as well. So.